What is up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Breathe and Air podcast, where everyday action meets extraordinary mindset. Today's guest is the first UFC fighter that we have had on the show. He is a BJJ Black Belt, and he comes from Little Rock, Arkansas, Pine Bluff to be specific. TJ Downtown Brown, thank you so much for coming on, brother.
Man, thank you for having me, man. I'm glad to be on here.
Yeah, so it was kind of a crazy thing how we met. We just on the lake in passing, had a good time together, and find out, you have had this journey of being a fighter and making it to where ultimately the majority of guys in the game want to be. So tell me a little bit about your childhood and kind of how you got into fighting.
I'd love to tell my story, man. But starting as a child, let's see here. Where should I start? So growing up, so I didn't have a father growing up. I grew up and basically my mom and my grandparents had a big role in my life. Growing up, it's kind of a, man, you hate to get on here and like tell some pity story, because at the end of the day, everybody's kind of got their own thing they're going through, so everybody's got their own struggle. But, growing up, life was kind of tough, you say Pine Bluff, Arkansas. I was actually raised like 10 minutes south of there, like in between Pine Bluff and Star City, if you know where Star City is.
Yeah.
So it's like in the middle of the country, so which was just cool too. But regardless, my grandparents had a big deal with my raising, and my mom, she kind of struggled a little bit on her own, with my father not being there.
Yeah.
And then like several years in, I guess he'd be my stepfather. She met a guy and raised my two other brothers, and he was kind of he wasn't a really good father. When you talk about being a father, being a father myself, you don't see him as being a good father. Just not being there. A little bit of abuse with drugs and alcohol, I think kind of played a part. So you can kind of paint a picture of really what I'm trying to say. But yeah, kind of a tough bringing up, but I always found sports as a kind of an outlet, like I was in baseball, I was in football. I heard you played football. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just played sports growing up, to kind of, so it kind of gave me a bit of a discipline, a bit of structure growing up, and anytime you have something to kind of keep your hands full, I think it's good for kids. Being a father, I try to keep my kid in as many sports and different things as possible, including piano, baseball, martial arts. I think they're all good and are different things that helped me grow up as a kid, But regardless, I was kind of in sports. And then about my freshman, sophomore year of college, I just started hanging around with the wrong people, wasn't playing sports or anything. And really in a bad place, to be honest. And then this girl comes up to me. She's like, hey, you're pregnant with she's pregnant with my kid. And I was like, oh crap, So in my mind, hearing that news, I really had to kind of step up, So in my mind, and I've known good men to run from that, and I mean, good men, good buddies of mine that have not answered that call, that haven't been there, So, but regardless, when that happened, I was like, man, I got to get my shit together, and I found Westside MMA, where I coach and train at now, and took a fight, knocked a guy out in 10 seconds, and here we are, So that's a little bit of my story.
No, absolutely. We can dig a little bit deeper, but everything that I'm seeing from you, and as I'm, researching your story and seeing, a little bit more about you, your son Kyler is at the center of all of that, and kind of hearing, your story. Did not having a father there as an early childhood growing up, was that part of the reason why you're such a strong role and Kyler is such a big part of your life?
100%, man. People talk about having a why, like I think it's very important. People ask me all the time, man, how do you get up so early and do all this training? How do you cut all that weight? How do you do this? And my answer is simple. I have a why, man. It's that 9-year-old kid, I never want my son To ask the questions I asked growing up. Growing up, I was like, man, where's dad? Who is dad? Or even deeper, I was like, man, what was so wrong with me that my dad didn't want to be there? And it was very important for me to be able to have my son never ask those questions, for me to be there. And I'm sitting here downing this man that was supposed to be my father, but really, it taught me what not to do. Many people could look at my situation and be like, oh, poor me, man, poor me, feel sorry for me. But that's not the way, and I look at these things and I look at what I went through, and it's just as things not to do, So when you ask my son is the centerpiece. He is, he is my why, and a big reason why I am today. And I question sometimes, talking like, man, could I have done it on my own, but I don't know, and I don't want to know. He came at a great part. He came at a great time where I had no idea how important it was that he came when he came, and it's really worked out for the best. And I don't want to know the man I would have become without having him. So,
you spoke. It's beautifully said. Beautifully said. And you spoke a lot about getting up in the morning, doing these things, and after that first knockout, what did that spark inside of you to say, hey, maybe I can do this at a high level?
right. Everything, all that training before then was kind of just, man, in the back of your head, you're thinking, man, I hope all this is worth it. Like, I hope I can actually do it. Like, it's crazy to have guys that come into the gym. They're like, man, I want to be the next big fighter. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that. And I'm like, man, most of those guys that come in there and tell me all that stuff and talk all that aren't the ones that make it. It's the guys that put their head down and get to work and just they show up to class and do what they're supposed to do. Those are the guys that make it, And with that being said, like, yeah, after that first knockout, I was like, man, I mean, it was honestly the best feeling in the world. Like, it's the highest of highs. Like, I've never felt anything like it. People jump out of planes, people go do roller coasters, they do all these things, but man, I've never felt anything in the world like being in that cage, winning, and having people yell your name. It's just, man, it's the highest of highs.
Yeah, I can only imagine the adrenaline. I mean, I know adrenaline as far as coming out and knocking heads and going to war, but it's a different battle when you're in there by yourself. I can assume. I can't
Yeah,
speak.
but it's also, you've also felt that rush that I'm talking
Right.
about. Having them people, those eyes on you, the lights are on, man. It's like, man, I'm not like an adrenaline junkie, but dude, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you start winning these fights, you start putting some stuff together. What eventually leads to the opportunity where you're having the opportunity to fight Dylan Lockhart at the Apex with?
Yeah, man, I've got to start way back before then. I have to bring you back, like, starting out here in Arkansas, I was a 10-0 amateur. Dude, I was knocking out everybody. I was on top. Everybody was like, man, TJ's the next big thing. And then all of a sudden I turned pro, and I lose my first fight right off the bat. I break my hand first round and lose my first pro fight. And it's like, dude, it broke my soul. It really hurts, and I really found out all these people that were on my back cheering for me, all these people I thought were there for me or my friend, were nowhere to be found. It was really a tough spot, and a place I really, at times like that, you really find out what you're made of and who you are, So, man, I bounced back from that. And then I've had a few more up and downs through my professional career. But then in 2019, I put 5 wins together, two head kick knockouts, one that goes on ESPN top 10. I wake up the next morning and watching this Sports Center, and I'm on the top 10 for ESPN with my head kick knockout. And then right after that, I signed with my manager, Jason House, was his Iridium Sports Agency. And it wasn't long after that, they got me the shot to get on Dana White Contender Series that I ended up winning and getting the UFC contract.
Yeah, that's incredible. Are you talking about the head kick where you kind of, when you kicked him and then you fell?
I fell? Yeah, yes, dude. That was the one. It was on Sports Center. It was so cool.
Pretty crazy. So you've talked, obviously we've said you got a BJJ Black Belt. You're kicking guys in the head. You're getting these knockouts. How do you kind of describe your style of fighting?
Well, it's kind of like you were just talking, man. My style is I'm not just a striker. I'm not just on the ground. I'm very I can finish you anywhere, whether it's standing on the feet. But when you do look at as you say a TJ Brown fight, it's going to be an exciting fight. I go out there and like I said in my last fight, man, I've got tons of heart, man. I'm probably too tough for my own good sometimes, but I go out there and I open up, and you can always expect me to go for the finish and for it to be an exciting fight. You're never going to catch me in there holding a guy or, trying to hold a guy on the fence, stalling. Like, I'm not that guy. I come out there and I come to fight and I come to put on a good show, and I believe that's what's kept me in the UFC, is that I am an entertaining fighter, and I'm a guy that really goes after it. I'm not in there holding or just trying to beat you by points. Like, I'm coming in there to finish you.
Yeah. I want to speak to that because it seems like, you've been fighting growing up, you've been fighting in the ring, and then you get to this opportunity where you're in front of Dana, you're at that stage in the Lockhart fight. And at first it seemed like you were almost down in that fight and you come and win by submission. So what is it like when you're in there knowing that, hey, the points may not stack up against me very well here. I need to go finish this guy in the third round, and you come out.
Man, you just described what me and one of my coaches, Rolly Delgado, is one of our favorite moments, fighting together for a decade. And that fight was just beautiful because, like you explained, the first round, I get dropped. On top of that, I get deducted a point for a knee to the head of a grounded opponent. So I'm deducted a point and got dropped. At this point, you have to get a finish, And with a concussed mind, I go back to the corner with my coach, and I sit down in that corner, and man, he's able to coach me through that, and we found a way for the finish. And then when you're talking about, I'm sure you played sports, talking about good coaches. I mean, that was just a great moment on his part to really get me to focus in and remember my why, like we talked about my son. He kind of brought him up and just to get my focus, and then put together a game plan that worked, and we were able to put that guy away. But man, it was just a great display of coaching and heart on my part.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw the little clip leading up to that, and it's funny you say that because he said that before, like, hey, his son's here. This is a huge thing that, when it comes down to it, if I need to use that for him to.
And it did. It happened. Yeah.
He legit said that, and you just said it. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with Rolly and kind of how you guys met and how that relationship has grown throughout the year.
Man, first of all, he's a great guy. Man, I'm real lucky that he's even had a part in my life, and when it's all said and done, I've always wanted to be a coach, like growing up. Again, I said I didn't have a father. Like, I had some really good coaches throughout my life, whether it's baseball coaches, football coaches, and of course, Rolly Delgado, and the role and the impact they've been able to put on my life has really inspired me that when I'm done fighting is I want to coach, because I don't even think he knows how big of a role he's played in my life as far as like not just fighting, but me becoming a man in this last decade, me helping me with finances, how to manage my money correctly, how to, just so many things, that I can't come up to my head right now, but there's so many things he's helped me outside of fighting, and I'm very thankful for him. And just in this last few years, we've become more than that. I've actually spent some time together outside the gym where we really just kind of hang out, and he kind of showed me another side of him that's also gave me more respect. So it's just cool to have that guy that you can be real with. You know what I mean? And he can also somebody you can look to. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. I can see that through you and the passion that you have to impact other people. And, it reminds me of like all the coaches that did have such a big impact.
Right.
And I'm just thinking about, youth growing up, high school, college, all these men that have impacted my life in a positive way. And
exactly,
it really is something to be said for that. Tell me a little bit about, I'm sure there's a long list of this, but the sacrifice that it has taken to get to where you are today and what you have had to give up at times to be at the level and perform at the level that you are.
Right. So I don't, many people probably don't know, but like as an amateur, a fighter, you don't get paid. that makes sense. And you have to build that resume to go pro. You have to build that resume. You have to build that experience. And one of the toughest spots was getting started, dude. I was in such a tight spot. Like, I've got a newborn. I can barely pay my bills. I'm like cleaning. I mean, I remember there were times I was going before everybody got to the gym to clean the gym just so I could get my gym dues paid. It's like the people that have really seen me when this first started, man. They come up, they pat me on the back and tell me things. And it's the ones that see me when it's really started that know really how far I come. Like, man, there were times I was sleeping at the gym, like couldn't get bills paid. But I knew if I just kept working, my tail off, that this would pay off. And luckily it did. Maybe I was just too hard headed to not give up. But luckily, I'm in the UFC, the highest you can get, and we're doing great now. The gym's doing great now. I'm doing great, but man, you talk about sacrifices. It's like very people even know, and if they do, they remember a decade ago when I was just this broke amateur kid trying to claw his way up the rankings to even get someone to notice me. And then. And then once you're there, it's like, man, I finally made it to the UFC. I dropped a fight, and I'm like, man, I've got to make some changes. So you talk about another sacrifice is after being in the UFC, I switched camps. I went to a guy named James Krause. He's in Missouri. He's probably going to get Coach of the Year this year. But I knew I had to make some changes. And those changes required sacrifices of me being away from my son. There were times in this last fight camp where I was gone away from him. So, with you hearing the backstory of how much I love my son, it was tough for me not to be there. But I knew, I had to take those sacrifices so it could pay off to where we could be at today. I was about to lose my contract, so I had to get that last win. And, it was really important, and it paid off. But, two of the bigger sacrifices I would talk about is, like I said, earlier in my career, man, just being in that financial, just stress, not knowing how you're going to get through the next day, much less the next week, and then once you're getting there, having to be away from my son that I've built all this for, and then having to be away from him for a bit of time, just, it was tough, but I just prayed that he understood, why I was doing it. And he would look back and say, hey man, Dad was out there putting it in just so we could live this life, so.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Does it all like flash back to you at the point? I know when you're in there, you even spoke in your post interview about, sometimes you wake up on the canvas or you don't remember half the fight and things like this. But when the smoke kind of rose after that Lockhart fight, when you're talking to Dana and he's like, hey, like we're going to give you a contract in the UFC. Yeah. Like, did
awesome, man.
Like there?
Dude, I'm gonna tell you, I didn't sleep that night, dude. Like, I remember at one point in time, I was by myself, just sitting there smiling in my bed. Nobody's in there. I'm by myself, and I'm sitting there just smiling like ear to ear. Like, it was great. And you come back home, and all your training partners, my coaches and buddies there, man. It was the highest of highs, man. From a guy, a small town guy from Arkansas to do that, it's a pretty big deal, man. And just on top of that, having all the sacrifices, the hardship, and not knowing if it's going to work out, it's the highest of the highs, brother.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You put on Arkansas, and I respect that. And you mentioned you called him the Violent Bob Ross, and
that's my boy, dude.
And these guys, so. And, we've seen these guys around Little Rock. Little Rock's a small town at the end of the day. So explain your relationship with those guys and kind of the support that they've given you as well throughout this journey.
Of course, man. I've got mad love for both of those guys, man. And they're someone Arkansas should be proud of as well. I'll start with Luis. Luis actually started under me. Like after he was done wrestling, he started under me. I was coaching him, and he took his first couple fights under me. Man, that kid is a beast, man. The most improvement I've seen on him though is, man, he's really grown mentally. There were times like I was worried. He is a bit young. Like, don't get me wrong, I've been a knucklehead too. But there were times I was worried because, man, it takes a lot of sacrifice. Like when all your buddies are out going somewhere on the weekend, you can't go.
Yeah.
you know, and man, if you've got to be there 2 or 3 times a day at the gym, you need to be there. And you know, I remember early in his career, he's a bit of a knucklehead, you know, and man, I've seen him mature and grow so much, man. And I'm super proud of him and where he's at today. Super proud of him, man. And especially knowing that, you know, he kind of came up under me, and I had a bit of his beginning, you know, a bit of his beginning came from me, you know, and that means a lot to me.
Yeah, he's a
And
legend
then
who hasn't watched.
Thug Nasty, I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying Luis is fun to watch. He's pretty
Yeah,
electric. Yeah.
yeah. And as far as Bryce, Thug Nasty Mitchell, man, he's a wild man, huh? He's a
Yeah.
wild man, dude. He's a character, dude. But you know, he's got this persona that he plays. You know, but I'm gonna tell you, dude, that guy is one of the most good-hearted guys I know. Like, dude, if I'm stuck somewhere at like 2 a.m. in the morning, I could call that guy. He would answer and come pull me up. Like, he's that guy, you know. And on top of that, you look at him and he looks like just, you know, like a little nerd, you know. He's kind of walking around, you know, but dude, little do you know, that nerd will snap you in half, and he is the number 13th ranked fighter in the world. You know, I mean, it's amazing. You know, he's really something special, and I think his strongest attribute is his mind. You know, that kid sets his mind to something, and he does it. And I'm just glad to be good friends, and him being one of my main training partners.
Yeah. That leads into perfectly kind of what I want to talk about, because this podcast is all about mindset and action. And you've spoken so much about the action side of things. But, you know, I see you in the ring going in before visualizing your takedowns, your punches on air. Like, and then later here that you have gotten recently a sports psychologist as well. So tell me a little bit about your mental process, whether it's visualization, meditation, whatever you may do there, and then how that sports psychologist has really helped your game.
Sure. This is actually something I really enjoy talking about. You know, just psychology in general is something I'm really interested in, and just knowing why my mind does the thing it does, why we do the things we do. Like it's so interesting to me. And as far as how the sports psychologist has helped me, one of the main things is like I wanted to focus on was, you know, as prideful as I am, I can admit, you know, like the nerves before a fight are real. Like I have the same anxiety as any other athletes, you know, and I came to her really wanting to help calm those nerves so that I was able to go in there and perform at the best of my abilities. Also, I want to work on my focus. There's times where, you know, and in fighting, you cannot let your focus slip for 1 second, like, or you can get caught, whatever it is, you can get choked. You have to have full focus for the entire round. And that was my main concerns going to my sports psychologist. And man, when you talks about visualization is one of the things that really helps with the anxiety. The part of, as far as visualizing, not just the fight, but visualizing the whole day, as far as like my walk to the cage, getting your hands wrapped up in the back, because a lot of people don't understand that's the worst part is when you're back there in the back, you hear this crowd roaring, people are coming back beat up, bloodied up, and you're sitting there just having to wait. Like you can't, you know, you have to just sit there in your head, you know, like, and you really, if you cannot control that part right there, it can lose you. It can make you lose, you know, you can go out there and just have the butterflies and anxiety, and you have to learn to control those butterflies. And that's one of the main things that sports psychologist helps me with. And one thing that visualization helped me with a lot, you know, and that visualization also gave me a bit of confidence, you know, like sometimes I wasn't just visualizing the perfect fight. I would visualize, okay, what if I get knocked down? Visualizing how I was going to react to that. What if the guy got on my back, how I'd react to that. So that when it happens, you're not just freaking out in the moment. Rather, you're like, oh, I've been here before, and you would respond correctly. Does that make sense?
No, I love that. And it's that tactic of saying, I have already been in every single situation possible, and I've already put in all the work and I've already done all the mental reps. I'm there. I've told this story before on the podcast, so sorry if you guys are hearing this again, but this guy was in a concentration camp in World War II, and he
I know this one.
visualized, and he was there for like over a year, I believe, and he visualized himself playing golf. He just visualized his swing. He saw it. It was the only thing that he said kept him sane. And he gets rescued from the concentration camp, goes back, plays that first round of golf after years of visualizing, and shoots the best score he ever shot in his entire life. Because your mind and your body are one thing. And at the end of the day, you know, we could trick our minds into those reps that we're doing over and over and over again. So subconsciously, you know, you can't tell the difference.
I'm so glad that you know that same story. I actually heard that on a TED Talk one time, and it really, man, it blew my mind, and has made visualization more important in my game. And that's what I tell some of the kids or the guys that get hurt. Maybe they get hurt in camp. I tell them, man, this is the time. Focus on the mind. You know, those reps of, you know, going, whether you're shadow boxing your mind, going through the fight in your mind, and putting yourself in these situations, man, it's like getting reps in their own, you know, getting those mental reps, you know, and it's very important, if not as just important as doing the physical reps.
Yeah. And I know we have a lot of athletes, a lot of people. I mean, even if you're going in for a job interview as a young adult, like,
great example,
can utilize these things. We're talking about it as at the extreme of fighting or intense sports or whatever it may be. But, you know, before you have a talk with someone that you don't really want to, you know, visualizing these things, using work and meditation, this all ties together. So, but this rolls me into kind of what I want to talk to you about as far as your training. It's got to be pretty rigorous. I mean, extremely rigorous, right? And your diet. So tell me a little bit about your training and diet when you're prepping for a fight.
Of course. So normally, physically, I have like 2 or 3 sessions a day. Normally, I have one session is geared around a stand-up art, like maybe boxing, kickboxing, or Muay Thai. Then the second session will be a grappling session normally, like wrestling, jiu-jitsu, or something like that. And then one of the sessions is a strength conditioning session, you know, where, of course, you being athletes, you know how strength conditioning is. And then once a week, I meet with my sports psychologist. You know, she's really worked wonders for me, man. And then as far as nutrition, man, I'm lucky that I have a company that does meal preps for me.
Yeah.
They actually do all the they count all the macros and stuff out for me for my weight loss. And man, that's really been one of the toughest parts of my career is cutting the weight, because not only, you know, you think about it, like as it gets closer to the fight and my calories and carbs are going down and I'm having to train more, you know, on top of the stress, like it's really tough to get yourself up and motivated and moving. And not only that, but being a clear mind going into your training with cutting that weight, you know. So, but it's like, man, you get back to that. It gets back to that why, you know, like, you know, for me, it was worth it. You know, it was a sacrifice we talked about, but you know, the diet has been a really tough part for me, man. I like to eat, you know, I'm a Southern boy, you know, my grandparents and parents all had fried food, like growing up, like, you know, that's the stuff. And when you, and you know, and I probably eat a bit too much sugar sometimes. So having to break that sugar and fried food, like it was tough, you know, but man, I'll tell you, it's amazing how much the body performs much better with good food. And not only that, like I think it has a big deal with inflammation. Like I've even noticed, like when I start eating cleaner, my lower back doesn't hurt as bad. You know, I think that the bad foods I'm eating kind of makes the inflammation worse. You know, so man, there's a lot of good benefits of eating better. You know, but I don't think it's enough to just do it like when you're fighting. I think you have to make it a lifestyle. You know,
there's a guy that asked me the other day if I could give a beginner on how to get in shape. What would tips be? The first thing that came to mind is everything starts in the kitchen. I mean, right. Be busting ass training. I mean, you could be training 2 times a week. If you're eating shit, you're not going to get results.
100%, dude.
Biggest things, you know, how much water are you drinking? You know, and you know just as much as anybody, it's that's going to affect your performance physically and mentally. Like there is the brain fog and, feeling inflammation in your back or whatever, energy levels when you're dehydrated and all those things. So yeah, that's always my first tip of advice.
I agree 100%. I actually, so I teach classes at Westside MMA, boxing, kickboxing, MMA classes, kids and adults, but I also do private lessons. And on those private lessons, man, I tell them, like, we can't outwork a bad diet. Like, we can get here and you can work as hard as you want, but if you don't go home and eat the right things, and you start drinking, it's never going to work out, and the ones that have made the sacrifice to eat right and eat healthy and make it a lifestyle, those are the ones that makes a big change and get to really feel the benefits of eating right and being at your full potential.
Yeah.
I hate to think that I'd say 70-80% of the world doesn't get to see their full potential, like never know what really good shape they could be in and how good they could feel both physically and mentally. And man, that's a lifestyle I want, I mean, I'm not everyone, but man, I want to be able to be active. I want to be able to go to the lake. I want to be able to climb this mountain. I want to be able to do these things, and I hate to think that a lot of people aren't experiencing the best version of their self they could.
I totally agree with you there. Let's fast forward. Just you get this UFC contract, and recently, like 6 weeks ago, right? Maybe it was almost 6 weeks ago. You get your first UFC win, an absolute dogfight versus Kai Kamaka. So tell me a little bit about that fight. You're out in Vegas, right? Were you in Vegas? All right. So you're in Vegas, and you're coming up, and it feels like a must win.
It is a must win for sure. It was without a doubt a must win, and not only that, like if you look at the betting odds, I was the underdog, man. Even in media going up to the fight, this guy is supposed to be the next big thing, so it made me kind of carry a chip on my shoulder, and not only that, like, man, I had a lot to prove, like. Going in that fight, I still don't feel like I performed at the best, at my best of my abilities. Like the world hasn't seen the best version of me yet, but that's what I'm shooting for. When I go into fights, I try not to think so much of my opponent or all the task at hand, but rather what can I do to give everyone the best version of me? And I think I nudged a bit closer than that. I feel like everybody knows I'm a dog. Like I'm going to go out there, I'm going to fight my heart out and be a dog, but I really want to have that perfect performance, where I go out there and I perform to my full potential. That guy people know about in the gym, the guy that was on that highlight for the knockout on ESPN. Like I want to find that, and I want to find the ability to perform like that every time. And I feel like that fight did a bit better, but it's nowhere near close what I could get. But back to the Kai Kamaka, like the dude was really tough, man. He's one of the toughest guys I fought. Like I said, he was supposed to win the fight, and I went up there and hurt their heart, man, and got it. Little old boy from Arkansas got it done, and I'm super proud of that, and it was a dog fight. I'm glad we got to win, and we're looking at getting another one. Looks like in August, September.
August and September. Beautiful. You answered my question. You said kind of a little bit you mentioned in the post-fight interview that, you have this relentless mentality. And I love that word relentless. I read a book by Tim Grover called Relentless.
It's a great book. I've read it as well.
Book, right? So I love this idea and word, and all the greats and anyone who's successful can relate to being relentless with what you want. And you definitely show that in the ring. So explain what that word relentless means to you.
To me, when I think of relentless, I think of just never stopping, never giving up. Like you look at my career, I've had many bumps in the road, brother. Like many downfalls, but I never quit. I kept my head down. I kept working. No matter what the odds were, no matter the circumstances, I kept pushing forward, no matter what. And when I think of relentless, that's it, and I believe I am relentless, like you look at my career, I don't have a perfect record. Like I've had some bumps, but I never gave up. And that's why I'm here today, like I'm not some super talent. I'm not super smart, but I've worked my tail off and I never quit. And I think that's relentless.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know you got a baseball game to go to, but I'm going to ask you a question I love to ask, and I'm excited
Cool.
to hear.
Of course.
What is your definition of success?
Good question, dude. Very good question. That's a great question. And I believe my definition could be different than other people's, right? But when I think of what it would take for me to be successful, I think it's in the day that I'm doing work that is fulfilling. I'm doing something that is fulfilling. Like if I was to be successful, for my definition is I would have a gym, and I would run the best gym you've ever had, and not just running a gym making money, but in that gym I'm able to influence young kids. I'm able to help some mom lose weight. I'm able to help some guy reach his dreams in fighting. And to me that's very fulfilling and successful. Like the things like that really mean something to me. Like and I think it's a reason I'm going to be able to move past fighting. You know, like I told you before, fighting is the highest of highs. I understand why people have a tough time moving past this. But I think that the fulfillment that I get from helping and coaching others is going to help me move past it, because I felt it. I felt it in my son when I was able to teach him through something, or teach him something where he looked back and I was like, Dad, yeah, I got it, you know, or, you know, he's proud of himself because he worked hard. He trusted in me and worked hard, and it paid off. Like things like that are really fulfilling. So when you talk about success, I think it would be me working a fulfilling job, and my son grow up to be twice the man that I am today, and learn from me.
TJ, thank you so much for your time, brother. And we can expect to see you. You said August, September, coming back to the ring pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Where can everybody find you on social? And shout out the gym for anyone that's interested in, you know, coming and learning from you. And I know you're doing the coaching that you're obviously very passionate about. So plug everything right now. Let's go. Get it going.
Hey, thank you. First of all, man, thank you for this opportunity, man. It's been a blast talking to you. You can follow me at Downtown TJ Brown on Instagram. I'm on Facebook as well. Our gym that I coach out of, that I actually teach classes and private lessons at, are Westside MMA. You can look us up at westsidemma.com. We teach kids and adults, MMA, boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, and wrestling. Love to have you, man, and thanks again, bro.
Yeah, I need to come by.
Dude, come on. I swear you'd love it. Like, you used to play ball and stuff, man. You'd love it.
told Rolly I'd come by and just get humbled. So I need to come by and learn and just.
Dude, and like if you're more comfortable with starting out with like doing some one-on-ones before you jumped into class, I'd be more than happy to help you, dude.
Beautiful. Well, TJ, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck to Kyler at the baseball game too, by the way. And thank you so much for coming on, guys. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Breathe and Air podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with someone who you think will get something out of this. TJ's message is one that's, uplifting and it can be extremely motivating for the right person. So if you got that and you know someone, share it. That's all that I ask of you. Reach out to me or TJ with any comments, anything, and hit that subscribe button if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. So thank y'all so much for tuning in, and have a great rest of your week.